Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective, and today will be no different. Today, I'm going to share with you guys some tips on how to be fit and lit in 2024, okay? Or and beyond. I think it's really important to have this conversation because I get a lot of sort of questions around, what do I do for fitness considering I don't eat animal products, I don't eat meat, I don't eat dairy, all these whey and protein shakes and things of that nature. And so people ask me a lot of questions around what to do around fitness, okay? Because eating correctly is just one part of the equation, which is a very important part of the equation. But how you move is very important too. And I'm going to use that word move instead of exercise. So I like the word movement and moving and motion instead of exercise, because I feel like a lot of people kind of get hung up mentally whenever they think exercise, because they think they need to go to a gym, they think they need a trainer, and they believe that unless they have this great workout plan, that it's not going to work for them. But the most important thing is motion. We are made to move, okay? We're made to move. And so it's just important to understand that the whole idea around movement is that, first of all, we have to have a lifestyle of movement. It can't be just something you do for 1 hour, 3 times a week. So that's really important to understand. And I think that's why a lot of people don't get results. Now, before we get started, what I want to say is this first. I feel like I can speak on this topic because not only was I a chemistry major in undergrad, but I also was an exercise physiology major too. And so I was a double major in undergrad. And one of the things that I really focused on was exercise. It was something that's really important to me because I was an athlete in college. And so not only do I have a 4-year degree in exercise physiology, but I have consistently worked out all my life because I was an athlete in high school and college, and then I've just been consistent with that, okay? And so what I'm going to speak with the mind frame of is, how do you exercise not only for health, but also to look the way you want to look as well too, because I know that's also important. It's a reflection of the work that we put in also. So I'm going to go through some of my philosophies. I'm going to share with you some of my personal goals when it comes to fitness as well too. And then I'll give you a little of the tips that I often share with people when they ask me questions. So first of all, most importantly, before we get started, movement, motion. Okay, that's the important word of the day, not necessarily exercise, okay? Because you gotta have a lifestyle. Your lifestyle has to be movement. It can't be just when you go to the gym or when you work out, okay? Now, the highest priorities when you are working out is you wanna make sure you train to be physically healthy. Most people train to look a certain way, but I see people all the time who are, look amazing. I've even seen bodybuilders that I've had to talk to about having heart attacks, having strokes, and things of that nature. And I'm not even talking about people who are taking, steroids or other type of supplements. I'm talking about people who are just look physically and cosmetically healthy, but internally they're not healthy. Okay, so the primary objective needs to be physically healthy. Okay, be physically healthy. And I'm going to explain in a second what that means, okay? Again, train to make yourself healthier. And what I mean by that is you should be making sure you have full range of motion in all of your joints, okay? Full range of motion in your neck, full range of motion in your spine, okay? In your knees and your ankles. And it's important to look at it that way because the body is like a chain. Everything is connected. So whenever the ankles get stiff, then it's going to be very difficult to get down in a squat. So your squat may not have anything to do with your hips. It may be that you have ankles that are inflexible, that don't have flexibility. Everything is on a chain. And if you have issues with your ankles, which a lot of people don't talk about, that will create an issue in your knees, okay, which will ultimately lead to an issue in your hip, which is ultimately going to affect your spine. Okay, so it just goes up the chain. All right, so you got to come back down the chain to heal it. All right, hugely important. That's what I mean about training for health. All right, because if you don't have full range of motion and flexibility in those joints, at some point you're going to tear a muscle. You're going to tear a muscle, you're going to injure yourself. Um, and ultimately, this is what puts people out of commission. This is also what turns people off from actually working out. All right. So make sure you train for health. And you could do that by the type of exercises you do. You could do active stretching, which means that it's not just going down into a static stretch, but actually moving into the stretch as well too. Instead of doing squats, go down into a seated squat and sit there for a second. And then when you go from that level, the next thing you want to do is to be able to maybe turn your knee inward and then this one inward. But it's everything is an elevation. You start where you are. So if you can't do a full squat, then what you need to be working on is trying to get to a position where you can actually do a full squat with no pain. All right. And again, that may start in your ankles. All right. Hugely important. It may not actually start in your back or your hips. The other thing that I think is really important is there are a few areas that are really good indicators of strength in the body. And quite often, what people will attribute to strength is the ability to squat X amount of weight, or the ability to bench press a certain amount of weight, or the ability to be able to curl a certain amount of weight. But one of the greatest predictors of overall health as it's related to motion, movement, working out, is grip strength, your ability to grip. So like when you get a heavy piece of weight in your hand, one of the things that you can do to help improve your grip strength in your hand is to do what are called farmer carries. And what that means is grab some dumbbells, heavy dumbbells, not the greatest, a really good way to determine if they're heavy is something that you can carry, but not something you can curl. Okay. So, and it also could be a kettlebell as well too. But you grab that, you can put it in one arm, and all you're doing is walking, carrying that on one side and keeping your spine straight. Okay, those are farmer carries. It's not only going to help with your posture and also your core, but also help with your grip strength as well too, which is really important and a great predictor of overall health. Another big focal point needs to be your breathing. Okay. Now, the best way that I would train people, like back in the day when I trained people in undergrad, was I would tell people whenever you're doing an exercise, whenever the body gets smaller, contracts, that's when you want to exhale. Whenever the body lengthens, that's when you want to inhale. Okay. And that makes sense too, because as your body opens up, it's more prepared to take in air. Okay. As your body gets smaller or contracts or flexes, that's when you're squeezing and it's more difficult to breathe anyway. So get in a space where you can breathe properly while you're doing exercises. I see a lot of people get headaches. A lot of people get tired too quick, too soon, just because they don't breathe properly during their exercise. So that's a really important focal area. Start to focus on, even when it's simple exercises like walking, focusing on your breath, in your nose, out your mouth. And if you're doing something vigorous, still control your breath. Hugely important. The other thing that's really an important focus is going to be leg strength. Most of our muscle is primarily in our legs. Okay, so you got to do leg exercises. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys in the gym, really big up top, really small down bottom. And your legs are one of the most important sort of areas of the muscle that you need to be training. And the reason why that's so important is because our upper body has a pump. It has a lung is really a pump. The heart is really a pump. We got all of these things that are moving blood. The kidneys are filtering the blood, moving the blood as well too. Okay, but then when we get to our lower body, there are no pumps down there. Okay, the only pump we have is our calf muscle. Okay, but we got to move. It has to be contracted. So it's really important to know and understand that we got to work this lower body. Okay, whether it's doing squats, whether it's doing lunges, walking, jumping jacks, jumping rope, whatever, etc., make sure you do leg exercises. They're really important. I won't go on a limb and say that more important than upper body because in totality, everything is important. But I think it needs to be a focus. Okay. The other thing is core. And in this season of my life, I'm really focused on core for a number of reasons. But one of the most important reasons I'm really focused on core is because core is really important for gut health. It's important for spine health as well too. And it's important for posture. And when your posture gets thrown off, what will happen is especially if you sit for long hours of the day, at some point your hips could shift and one of your hips could be sort of contracted and make one of your legs shorter than the other, which could lead to injuries down the line. So it's so important to make sure you got good core strength so you can have good posture, good spinal health as well too. All right, so that's really important to focus on that as well too. And then the other thing that I tell people, and this is really important in terms of focus, is start with body weight and then progress to resistance weight. That means progress to adding, heavier weight. And I think what happens is people walk into the gym, haven't been in there in years consistently, and they just start lifting weights. And it throws their body off because you can't even at that point really do a lot with your own weight. And when I get people to do little simple drills, like for instance, like go in the gym, find a line, stand on one leg, hop back and forth on the one leg, back and forth, and then do the same thing on the other leg. And then do essentially what's called a single leg RDL, which is lifting up one leg and folding forward to touch your toes and coming back up. Okay. Most people can't do those stability type of exercises. So what do you think is going to happen when you add weight and start to do these exercises that your body isn't even prepared for, because you can't even do the structural exercises, which are really important for form and technique. So it's hugely important to focus there as well too. Form and technique, progressing from body weight to added resistance, okay? Hugely important. And the biggest focus is mentally build brick by brick. That's the most important thing that I could share with you, is that Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say. And so it's important to know that people think that they're going to get results in 30 days. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes it can take 30 months. But this idea of going from, pot belly to six pack in 30 days, it doesn't work like that. And I think patience and giving ourselves grace, but also being consistent and disciplined to get to the goal is really important. And this is also going to prevent a lot of injuries. Okay. So let me share with you a few philosophies that I'll share with you what my personal goals are, but you got to make your own. And then a little bit about my personal routine, and maybe that'll help you next time you're in the gym. Philosophy number 1, incorporate movement into your lifestyle. Okay. Don't just do movement when you go to the gym or you work out at home. Do movement everywhere you go. Park further away. Take the stairs instead of the escalator or the elevator. Incorporate movement in your life. In the morning, make it routine where you go out, you walk around the block. On your lunch break, add some exercise in there, even if it's walking up and down the stairs. But the most important thing is make your lifestyle movement. Okay. Number 2, master your body weight first. A lot of people like to go straight to the weights. A lot of people like to go straight to sprints. Master your body weight first. Okay. Body weight in terms of like doing things like calisthenics, walking, jogging, then sprinting. Okay. So everything is a progression. But what you're trying to do is master this first. Master your body weight first, and then you can add additional weight. Because once you get to a point where everything is easy, that means that you're ready for resistance training, okay? Now, adding a little bit here and there is fine, but it's important to master your body weight first, all right? Next important philosophy, 80% of fitness is made in the kitchen, okay? 80% of fitness is made in the kitchen. So if you're not eating properly, you're in an uphill battle, okay? The next philosophy is restore, restore, restore. A lot of people work out really hard, but they don't do no restoration. Okay, so it's important to know that you got to restore too. And one of the most important and key factors to restoring is resting, sleeping properly. That's actually when our bodies repair, rebuild, okay, and heal. Okay, so if you're not sleeping properly, you're throwing away all of that hard work you put in during the day of movement. When you're in your workout, when you're doing your exercise, you throw it all away. Because if the body can't rebuild with the things that you did at the gym, the food that you ate, and then you sleep, and then it does that rebuilding, it can't do that for you. Because when you're working out, you're tearing down tissue. When you sleep, you're rebuilding that tissue. And the more you work out, the more you tear down, the more your body builds if you get the proper amount of sleep. Okay? The next thing is hydrate with electrolytes. If you're going to be working out, especially really hard where you're sweating, because it's important to sweat when you work out. And if you're not sweating when you work out, that could be a big issue, especially if you're putting up enough effort, because I see this in a lot of people. But the most important thing is when you sweat, you lose electrolyte. What are electrolyte? Minerals in the body. Okay, you got to replace those. And a few ways I replace those is how I eat, but also making sure I drink coconut water, because coconut water is filled with electrolytes. And then sometimes I incorporate some natural juices like watermelon juice. So, it's about to be summer, so watermelon is going to be here. I drink watermelon juice. All right, so now I'm going to share with you some of my goals, my routine, but before I do that, let me say this. One of the greatest predictors of longevity, how long you live and the quality of life you have, is muscle. Okay? And what we tend to see is that as people age, their fat content goes up and their muscle content goes down. Okay? Now the idea isn't to look like Hercules or to look like some bodybuilder. That's not the idea. That's not even, if that's something you want, cool. But that's not something that's necessary. But when you get a DEXA scan or you go into the doctor, your percentage body fat should be, far less than your muscle content, okay? For women, it should be around 20 or 18 to 20. And then for guys, it could be somewhere around 12%, okay? And I'll share with you what my goal is in just a second. But it's important to know that your muscle content will be a predictor of your longevity and how well you age as well too. So this is also why movement is very important, and how often and how you move is very important. Okay, so some of my goals, having range of motion and flexibility in every joint in my body, including the spine, hugely important. So of course I'm incorporating that throughout the week. Incorporate that through motions that I do. So different type of floor exercises I do, different types of stretches that I do specifically for me in areas that are very tight. So that's what I do for range of motion, a whole litany of things. Strength is important for me as well. But again, mastering my body weight first, then resistance training. And specifically, I'll talk about it, which is my next one is what activities do you want to do? See, me, I love playing basketball. So because I know I love to play basketball, I know I need to be strong in certain areas. I need to have agility in certain areas. I need for my ankles to have flexibility and strength, because basketball is a sport where you're prone to spraining an ankle. So all of these things I take in consideration. So when I'm forming my workout plan, I'm incorporating those things in there. A lot of people do nothing when it comes to their workout, their movement, and then they just jump on a basketball court and they tear an Achilles, or they bust up a ankle or a knee, and they wonder why. You have to move in such a way on a daily lifestyle basis that allows you to perform these type of actions. So I know that I want to be able to perform basketball actions. I want to be able to jump, grab a rebound. I want to be able to go this way and then this way. And to be able to do that, I have to be doing motions that get my body so used to it, so that when I get on the basketball court, my body's like, oh, I know what we're doing here. Make sense? All right, the next thing is how you look, all right? How you look or how you want to look, all right? I tell people this all the time. If you want to look like a track star, you want to look like a football player, you want to look like a basketball player, then you got to train like one. There's a reason why they look that way. They look that way because they train in a certain way. A boxer trains very differently from how a football player trains. A basketball player trains very differently than how a soccer player trains, and as a result, they look very different. As a matter of fact, you look at a marathoner, like, people from Kenya and Ethiopia and Eritrea, you see they're winning all of these marathons all the time. You look at their body frame, okay? But you compare them to a sprinter who looks very muscular, they got thicker legs, look totally different. They're both running, but they're training differently, okay? And as a result of training differently, they look differently. So I tell people, if you want to look like a track star, then guess what? You're going to have to train sort of like a track star. So keep that in mind. So my goal, I want to be a hybrid between a basketball player and like a boxer, okay? Or maybe a basketball player and a sprinter. That's sort of like my goal in terms of like aesthetics, all right? And then also goal in terms of like having endurance and circulation. So really important to me, incorporating health in my workout, being very intentional about making sure I get lower body movement so I can get circulation going back in the body. Now, in terms of my routine, my daily routine, making sure I incorporate flexibility. At least 50% of my workouts, movement, is calisthenics. 10 to 20% is cardio, so that's jump rope, that's the bike, that's jogging. Sometimes I do sled training as well too. So I do a basketball, I do an assortment of things. Resistance training, that could be around 20%. And again, doing different motions, different ways, focusing on muscles by, focusing on the technique and how I do that in the proper form. And then incorporating sauna. So I do the sauna at least every other time I go to the gym. And then yoga twice a week. So that's my routine. That's my sort of weekly routine. And I'm in the gym somewhere around 4 times a week. And then, but I'm doing something every day at home. Every day at home. So I hope this has been helpful in terms of like to give you a mind frame in terms of like what I believe will be very helpful for you on your fitness journey, and also giving you a little bit about what I do on my fitness journey as well too. So comment below if there's anything that was like an aha moment for you. Share this video, hit the subscribe button, and until the next time, peace and blessings and Godspeed.